Okay, so we'll start with you, Papa.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So, you can just say your name.
My name is Clarence C. for Curtis Roller.
Okay. So, were you drafted into the war or did you enlist?
Oh yeah, drafted. U.S. 51878200.
Do not go willing into that night.
And were you in college prior or did you get drafted because you weren't?
I graduated in '63 and took a couple of years at the branch campus for OSU here, and it about 90 credit hours, whatever that means now. And it dawned on me that I didn't know what I was doing. I was going to college to learn, but not to learn something. And it finally dawned on me that I'm wasting Mom and Dad's money because
He didn't like music appreciation.
Well,
oh, please.
you go to college to do something, and I was just going to learn. And it suddenly dawned on me that, it's time to declare a major, and I didn't have one.
So you went down to Stony
So I
Brook?
went, yeah.
And then
Well, I dropped all the way out. And as long as you were in college, you had a draft deferment of 2. You were draft 2S, which put you way down on the list. And in December of '66, I must have dropped out then for the spring, whatever. And in 6 months they caught me.
Okay. And how did your family respond to you being drafted?
Mom and Dad, I don't remember. You cried a lot. Because I remember bringing the letter over, and I still got the letter. I remember bringing the letter over.
I remember you getting me a ring before you left,
Mm-hmm.
the girl. Yeah, I think most people thought that it was your duty. I think that's how you felt then when you went to Vietnam. Yeah, it wasn't like today where everybody was like, yippee, you're doing your country, you're blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. It was kind of good, bad, because, Vietnam was going on then, so you knew that you probably were going to go there. But yeah,
the spooky thing is, you get the letter, and you go down to the local Greyhound bus station at dark time in the morning, and they put you on a bus and take you to Fort Hays in Columbus. And anyway, the really spooky part is they give you a quick physical, and you're standing there, and the guy with the sergeant stripes on him says, 1, 2, 3 Marine, 1, 2, 3 Marine, and thank God I wasn't number 4. Because you were drafted Army, Marine, Drafted into the Marine Corps probably wouldn't been nice.
And why is that?
Oh, don't say too much.
I jokingly tell the Marines I am all in favor of the Marines because they save good Army men on the beach.
They just, they're like really gung-ho.
Oh, yeah. They, if you were a Marine in Vietnam, usually a couple of weeks before it's time for you to cycle out, your year is up. If you're in the Army, they pull you off the line, you get all your gear together, and you go through all of the checkout with the supply sergeant and with all these people. In the Marines, they give you, time to go, your last day. So you get all those days where there's a target on you. Just, yeah. Different attitude.
But yeah, I don't remember any reactions from your family being negative or positive. Mine, of course, but I don't remember theirs.
Yeah. Can you talk about your boot camp or training experience?
Forever, you can talk about that.
Going from civilian to Army, that's a real bunch of cold water in the face. Especially, a lot of kids were more social. You stay overnight, you go camping and all this, and I didn't do that. So that was probably almost literally the first time I spent any time away from home.
You probably stayed with Harold all night, but not very often.
Not very much. And I remember I'm not sure where it was in time, but you know, you got this mental attitude, you just, I don't like this and I don't want to be here, but then you say, you know, I'm here for 2 years. I can sing and dance for 2 years, because I'm not here for life. All these other guys, we call them lifers, they're here forever. So as soon as I realized, wait a minute, this is a game, you got to learn the rules and you play the game. And I can sing and dance for 2 years. That's when your mind says, okay, you can fight it and be miserable, or you can just go with the blows, and in 2 years, you wave goodbye.
If you survive Vietnam.
Did your training prepare you specifically for Vietnam, like were you briefed about the people, culture, or terrain of the area?
Not really. Basic training, of course they don't know where you're going, and you got basic training, and then they call AIT, Advanced Individual Training. I went into this intermediate speed Morse code, radio. Tick, 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 dot, 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 that stuff. And that's another 8 weeks of training. About 4 or 5 weeks into that, some people split off and went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, which was radio teletype. Morse code school is, if you're in Vietnam, you got an aerial sticking up that says, shoot me first. So when I got out of AIT, a month off or 2 weeks? 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't a month.
2 weeks,
No.
and went out to Fort Sill. Headquarters and Headquarters Battery, 3rd Corps Artillery.
That's when I got married.
Yep.
Was that 2 weeks?
The second highest command on the post. I was in their commo platoon. Did nothing with Morse code. No one in that commo platoon did anything with Morse code. They had radio teletypes. So
Why did you have to stay extra?
I had walking.
Fort
Jackson?
Yeah,
I had walking pneumonia.
Oh, that's what it was.
You know,
Because it was extra. Like a couple
to
weeks?
graduate from AIT, you had to send and receive at 25 words a minute. Morse code is tricky. And one, I got walking pneumonia, which, you know, I was in the hospital for a couple of days, which, you know, put you back. So they cycle you back 1 week. And
Amanda, put Carson out, please. Amanda?
so I got to the place where, well, in Morse code, your jobs in the Army are called Military Occupational Specialties, MOS. When you're in the Army, you like to have several of those, because maybe there's very few promotions in this job, but there are in other jobs. And I remember a guy from, his last name was Jet. He was from the 82nd Airborne, and he was looking to get us, just broaden his future. So he was going to pick up an MOS of some sort of radio school. I remember in class one day, he just sat there. You know, you're sitting there with earphones on, and you're listening to Morse code, and you're supposed to be writing it down. And he was just sitting there, staring. He locked up. 2 sergeants come over, took his earphones off, and walked him out. Never came back. He simply locked. Couldn't do any more. I was close to that, and I was giving up. I said, I can't get it, it's not coming. And I quit in my mind. It was on a Friday. I went in there Monday morning, and it's like they slowed everything down. I was waiting on the letters. And I asked them, I said, did you guys cut a new tape? The old ones get scratchy. Did you slow it down? They said, no. Over that weekend, my mind said, okay, just relax. And I was waiting for the letters. So, you know, as far as, you know, you get out of that, you go to Fort Sill. They were, what was called levies were coming down. People were going to Vietnam. So the orders would come down to the post commander, we need so many people. He would ship it to the next command. They said, you're not taking my people, and they'd ship it down till you got to the last command on post. Well, in the spring of '68, we were the second highest command on the post, but there wasn't anyone below us. So that's when the levy hit us. So they were putting together a new brigade, or reconstituting the 5th Mechanized Infantry, the 1st Brigade. So they just grabbed people from all over and put them together. We had artillery, infantry, armor was what it basically was. And we went out to Fort Carson, Colorado.
Didn't go there until after we were in Oklahoma.
Yeah, we went to Oklahoma, and that's where, you know, on paper, they said they OJT'd me on radio teletype. Nah, they didn't.
That's
Not
on job
really.
training. You guys
Yeah,
do
it's
it.
on the job training. I was a runner for radio teletype operators. Didn't do anything. But as far as what they told you about going to Vietnam,
Or about
we had one NCO tell us, you know, when you get over there, they're different. That doesn't make you better, them worse, whatever. They're different. And you might, you know, say things about them. Just understand, maybe they hear English and understand it. So watch your language. You don't have to insult people just because they're different.
It's starting to work now.
We were leaving, when we first got over there, a place called Wonder Beach, brought the whole brigade together, got everything all situated, and then we left, and there's not much more impressive than a brigade of armor leaving a place. You know, going down the road, 50 yards out on each side is more tanks, and more tanks, and more tanks. That's impressive. They told us, now, you're new here, no one loads their weapons, because you don't know what you're doing.
And I remember getting the letter from you when you were there, and you'd been swimming or something, but you slept through the first.
Well, we were a place called
attack.
Wonder Beach.
Well, you've never coming back.
They shipped all our armor over in boats. Yep, they went like 2 or 3 weeks in front of us. See, the guys that took the armor over, they went on leave early in June. And we went on leave late in June. Well, when we were on leave, they were on boats going across the Pacific. So that when our leave was over, we flew over in planes, and they were already there, you know, unloading everything. So when they told us, you know, when we were going from one place to another, you guys are green, you don't know what you're doing. No one shoots your rifle, you don't know what you're doing. Don't even load it. I had a full magazine in my M16, 1 round in the chamber, and my finger on the safety. I figured, he's right, I don't know what I'm doing, but my rifle's going to be loaded. Because you could...
Rules don't apply ever.
You could see certain people when they looked at you. They didn't like you. That guy at night probably that did things that, you know, would shoot at you. But in the daytime, you know, you couldn't tell the difference between the Viet Cong and a guy plowing a rice field. Because at night, probably he wasn't plowing a rice field. And you could see in their eyes, I don't like you. I remember looking at one of them on a 2.5-ton truck, got my M16, all of us are, you know, you're brand new fatigues. Everyone in the world knows you're green as grass. You know, you look goofy. You look scared is what you really look. Because we were driving, people, when they remember Vietnam, remember the Tet Offensive. You know, where the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Regular Army just... Tactically, they got their butts kicked. Killed them by the thousands. But strategically, they won the propaganda war. Well, where we went through, you know, you could still see the bullet holes in the buildings and you know, where it had been a real war there. It came home to everybody. Just,
Just one question.
Wonder Beach. Went body surfing in Wonder Beach. 120 degrees.
Because it's salt water.
Yeah. But 120 degrees, filling sandbags to bunker in your tents and whatever. You'd lean over and the sweat would just run off of you.
And that was when you were young and thin?
Yeah.
And fit? Let her ask you some more questions.
So what was a typical day like for you in Vietnam?
Once we got our teletype rig, there was only two of us. Because I went over with the guy, the teletype team chief was Sergeant Richard Williams. He was one of those guys that he was looking to go other places in the Army. Well, when we got over there, and we were at Wonder Beach, we were filling sandbags, and he was off with some friends in the 101st Airborne Polytechnic to get another job to go someplace else. Well, when we got up to our first place in Vietnam, a place called Charlie 3 kilometers south of the demilitarized zone. We finally got our teletype rig, and there were three of us, which is all right. And then he found another job, and then there were two of us. So for the longest time, it was 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And you're on nights, and the other guy's on days. And if you want to swing to get on the days, you do 18 and 18. But
Since you got out yet, right, bud?
yeah, I didn't do anything.
That's where
They
it started.
totally did not utilize the teletype radio. We sent sit-reps. People that watch NCIS know sit-rep is a situation report. 2 times a day, they would tell you da-da-da-da-da. Nothing changed. A lot of times we had those messages typed up before they gave them to us because we knew what was going to be in them. And so for the longest time, yeah, it was 12 hours on, 12 hours off, sitting in these campers that are on the back of, like my truck. You put a camper on the back, not the kind that goes over the cab, but the camper that just sits on the back of the truck. That's what my teletype rig looked like. You know, you could touch the walls and touch the walls.
We can bring some pictures
Yeah.
if you want them.
Well,
We've got-
I got my little model. I even took sea ration cardboards and made a model of what the teletype rig looked like on the inside.
Well, we have lots
But,
of pictures.
You know, I was in the headquarters company of an armored battalion. Wasn't like I was in a line company,
On the front line.
you know, getting shot at real regular. You know, my teletype rig sat on railroad ties, and we'd come up with other railroad ties. It was bunkered in with concertina wire around it, sitting in the battalion headquarters tactical operations center area, which was wrapped in concertina wire, in the center of a landing zone or a fire support base that was a mile across. So, like I said,
More questions?
at that time, a $20,000 radio, and it's like you called in, everything's all right today, boss, and that was it. One time, had the battalion XO come over, and he says, tomorrow night at 1800 hours, I want you to come up on this frequency and listen for someone. And his call sign will be Center Click 6. Our call sign at that time was Toggle Flare.
Oh, that's the Wi-Fi password.
Yeah.
And now.
And now the internet knows.
But, you know, so at that time,
Cars pulling in our driveway.
I tuned the radio to this frequency, and way out in the far, I heard this guy calling for a Toggle Flare number. So I got on the phone, called the battalion XO. What's he do? He comes over. They set up their R&R. They were going to go to Bangkok. And so my teletype rig became a phone. Hey,
No, the concierge.
Yeah, you know, the guy says, okay, we'll meet in such and such time, such and such a place, and we'll go on R&R. That was probably the most unusual thing that happened on that radio. The rest of them were just
Luckily.
situation reports that almost never varied.
Which was just fine.
So you didn't see combat very much then?
No one ever shot at me personally. You know, let's see. LZ Nancy, which was where I was the longest time. We got attacked one night, and it was just some middle of the night. There's nothing much more impressive than the entire perimeter of the LZ. Now it's a mile across, so it's 3 miles around. M60 machine guns and 50 caliber machine guns. Every fourth, fifth round is a tracer, and all you can see is these red sweeps. Because they were attacking here, but as soon as the attack comes in, everybody opens up. It's pitch dark, and all I remember hearing was a thump, thump. And then suddenly the flares lit up. The whole string of flares. The place was almost as bright as day. And that's the only time we got attacked. One night, because I was a team chief, a sergeant. He had NCO meetings every night. And we were told, tonight, fellas, there's one tank for the entire perimeter. Everybody else is out on patrol. Just so you know, if we get hit, your orders are everybody falls back to the Tactical Operations Center. It's about 60, 70 yards across. Everybody falls back to that position because LZ Nancy has been targeted by Fire Support Base Quan Tri. And when they attack us, you can't stop them. The artillery will land on your fire base. So we were targeted by our own artillery one night. That's the only thing. Like I say, no one ever shot at me personally. I was in a headquarters, a battalion headquarters. Just about as safe as you can get.
When you ask about how the family felt when you got whatever, I never watched the news. The whole time he was there, I didn't watch the news. I had your dad. I couldn't watch it. I didn't want to know what was going on. But Grandma and Grandpa watched the news all the time. I mean, and I don't know if they did before that, because after that, then they did. They were always watching, and when we got cable, they always watched the news. But they always had the news. And I don't remember how, I mean, when I would go over there, I guess I would stay, but they were on top of everything that was going on. Now, I don't, and you wrote to your mom and dad, too, so they might have applied where you told them you were and what you were doing to the news.
No, there's, you know, people got killed over there.
Yeah.
People I knew. Like I said, the movie that, you know, I mentioned before, Good Morning Vietnam. A lot of guys have flashbacks, you know, PTSD. I've had 2 episodes of that when I was watching Good Morning Vietnam. In one scene, they're driving through a bunkered-in compound. Sandbags every place, and I could smell the sandbags. I'm sitting in a movie theater in Lima, Ohio, and I could smell the sandbags. And then one time, it was in the summer here, with the windows all open, and I was laying down in bed, taking a nap or something, and way out in the distance was a helicopter flying. And for a second or two, the room moved. And I had moved 9,000 or 10,000 miles in my mind, and I heard the helicopters. the only
I'm
two
surprised
things.
it's only once because we're on the helicopter path, so I'm surprised it didn't happen
That
more.
only happened once. Like I said, I had it easy over there. There were guys that, I worked with a guy that was alert, long-range recon patrol. They'd go out for 30 days and come back, clothes just falling off of them. Now that was not nice.
So how did you feel about fighting against communism and the communists, and did you feel they were a big threat to the U.S.? And what did the military say about them?
I don't know that I even put it in that perspective. I got drafted, I was in Vietnam. It was the old domino theory. You know, if South Vietnam falls, then Laos falls, Thailand falls, Burma falls, you know. Fear of the great big bad communists. That was an outside influenced civil war. When the war was over, we left. South Vietnam crumbled. Ho Chi Minh said, "We won. We won. 300 years and we won." Because for 300 years, they have been ruled by everyone but themselves. And he said, "See, we won." That's a perspective this country doesn't have. You know, it wasn't like, 2 or 3 year, 4 year, 10-year war. They had been ruled for 300 years, fighting against other people for 300 years. Were they wrong? Were we wrong? That's someone else's decision to make. Cost an awful lot of lives.
Yeah, that's something, we watched a documentary on McNamara, and that's something that he said that they didn't take into account, was the fact that they'd been doing that for 300 years.
Totally off the subject, I worked with a guy retired from the refinery here in Lima. I worked with a guy in the instrument shop who was a civilian in World War II on Wake Island. And there were a bunch of civilians there, and they were construction people. It was before the war, and Japanese declared war on us, and he was captured. Wake Island fell within weeks, days. So he was a POW the entire time of the war. Towards the end, there was this guy called him, it was like a trustee. He was a Chinese guy. He was a prisoner, but he had a little bit more freedom within the camp. And the guys could hear the B-29s, and they knew the bombing, and it was getting closer and closer, and they kept bumping this guy, "What's going on? What's the news?" And the guy say, "War be over soon. We win. War be over soon." And they kept, "War be over soon." When? And the guy says, 5, 10 years. War be over soon. I mean, to an American, that, he says, that just destroyed you. 5 or 10 years I gotta live. He says, I wouldn't have made it another winter in the POW camp. And here's this guy saying, war be over soon, 5, 10 years, we win. That's the perspective that they have that we don't have. A whole different way of looking at life.
How did you stay in touch with your family or grandma?
Constant.
Constant, letters every day.
Yeah. My mailman, I would be practically waiting in the mailbox for letters, and I'd get like 4 or 5 at once. And I think it was after your dad was born, one of the times I was out waiting for the mail, and he said, I think I'm just going to hold them and give you one a day, so that you don't have to go a day without getting one. But yeah, and we sent tapes. We had cassettes, little cassettes. And
Audio.
Yeah, no video. But yeah, so we had cassettes, and we sent those back and forth all the time. And you wrote to your mom, your aunt, me. I'm trying to think. It seems. Did you, to one of the ladies that your mom worked with? What's her name? Doris. Did you write to Doris?
No.
I thought you did. But yeah, both ways. And he was much better at writing. I was taking care of your dad. There was a little bit more to do there. But yeah, there was never any complaints about letters. Pretty good. And
all
we
you
still
did-
have them, which we've got to burn. We really need to on top of that.
And the nice part about it is, before you put a stamp, you just wrote free.
Yeah, and it's literally, I mean, I've got those.
And there wasn't any censoring, you know.
Not at all. You mean as in somebody reading it or
Yeah.
anything?
No, yeah, as to, you know, you
Oh,
can't.
what you could say or what you
can't say or
couldn't
what to say.
No, but I don't, now again, maybe to your mom and dad, you said more stuff about that kind of stuff?
I don't even remember those letters.
We've got those.
Yeah.
To look through before we come. But yeah, we've still got, I think all of ours, of course, we all still went together for 4 years, and I've got all those notes too. Again, note to self, we're gonna burn those.
Was there anything you missed about home?
Yeah, really?
That's why we have to burn those letters.
Sorry, I had to burn letters. Yeah. Well, that's why I was fixing tuna noodle casserole for lunch. Because remember talking about tuna noodle casserole and walking at the mall. Remember that? That's what we kept talking about. We wanted to go walk at the mall, and because it must have been around at that time. Because I remember we wanted to go to the mall and have tuna noodle casserole. But yeah, that was the biggest thing. Just each other.
How did people entertain themselves while they were there?
Oh, she doesn't want to know about that.
Well, like I said,
It
I
was
was.
cloudy there. It was very cloudy.
No, not really.
You said there was time.
The coldest I was over there was in February of '69
That wasn't what I was talking about.
for the entire month. Must have been like their monsoon season. Never saw the sun, and it was always cloudy. Probably in the 60s. Just froze your butt off. But
Get to the good part.
I'm in the headquarters. You know, I didn't go out. You know, I was on duty, 12 hours on, 12 hours off until
Very
we
loyal.
got 3, and had a hell of a mess sergeant. I mean, anyone that complained about the food over there is just too damn picky. And we had,
anything.
you know, USO troops come through, you know, maybe 3 or 4, and some movies. I don't really say that I can remember any of them. I've got pictures of a couple of them, but you know, we're way up north. I mean, when we first went there, went to a place like I said called Charlie 3. I mean, an hour's walk and you're in North Vietnam. So Bob Hope didn't go there. He went to Cam Ranh Bay and maybe.
But you did
maybe
have
Hue.
some. Yeah, because you've got
Yeah,
pictures of.
Sure. We had, you know, some people you never heard of, you know, and rightfully so, you know, they still had people. And we had a movie theater down there. I got pictures of that, you know. It was, you know, like the Roman theaters, you know, a hillside and a stage for the performers and a little theater. I don't remember any of the movies we had.
But just because you were loyal and a good guy, not everybody was, how did they get the marijuana that they had? Where did that come from?
The neighbors.
The neighbors?
Yeah.
Which neighbors?
The little company or country store just outside the post.
But I mean, where did they get it from?
They grew it there.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Rice and
I mean,
wheat.
there
All
were
right.
there were times
This is part. Don't see that movie
in
thing.
the Como platoon, if we would have been attacked, I would have been the only one that would have known how to fire the weapon.
There you go. Yeah.
Everybody else was just blitzed. They'd have a movie at night,
I believe
and the guys after the movie would walk back to wherever their tents or hooches were. In the morning, you'd see these, we called them roaches. About this long.
Here. Everybody called them roaches.
There were marijuana cigarette stubs, you know, just, oh yeah,
You tell we're into drugs. And,
just,
but what
oh,
you
I did get a blinding headache from everybody smoking marijuana in our hooch, you know, just,
tell him,
and,
Johnny, tell him that. But also you used to trade your beer coupons or something for pop?
well, I had a teletype rig and I had a 3/4 ton truck that it sat on. Well, when we got to LZ Nancy, we offloaded the teletype rig, and then I had a truck. I didn't need a truck. I'm not going out on the road. When we were up at Charlie 3, we didn't, before we had a teletype rig, like dummies, every morning we would get the reports and drive them to the brigade headquarters in Quantree Combat Base, which was probably, say, 20 miles away. We were on the roads before they'd run the minesweepers.
Good idea. Really good idea. Because you're young and stupid.
But, no, I don't.
So there was something that you were really writing letters home.
I had it easy, you know, because, like I say, if you would have been at a company, if I'd have been a company radio operator, they didn't have teletypes, they had radios. That's a whole different life. You know, I was, like I say, no one ever shot at me personally.
One question.
So you said you have, yeah, wait, no, I'm not gonna ask. Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events? Now you just really budgie.
When the dog kept coming in.
Coffee is at a premium over there. We were the 1st Brigade, 5th Mechanized Infantry. A brigade, all by yourself. You know, it wasn't like you were in a division, like the 101st Airborne. We were the 1st Brigade, and we were attached to the 3rd Marine Division. And you want to talk about a red-headed stepchild? You know, they're Marines and we're Army. They don't particularly care for us. You know, we're a nuisance because we're attached to them. They want to fight with Marines. They don't want to fight with these Army guys. So, humorous.
Yeah.
Or unusual.
Unusual when we first, well, that's the one thing I didn't care for about the Marines was when we took over Charlie 3 from them. They, you know, going someplace else, so we picked a straw that said, you go to Charlie 3. I remember the first day there, you had to watch where you stepped because of all the live ammunition just laying around. Belts of machine gun ammunition, trip flares, it's just laying around. I mean, that's the first thing we had to do was clean up the place from the Marines so that it was safe to walk around. And we didn't have a teletype rig, so we had a radio or a telephone system, and we had, it was all hard wires. Everyone that had a phone, we had a pair of wires running to them. No telephone poles, they were running on the ground. So when a tank would come in and pivot on your wires, okay, that wire is out, you know, you had to string new wires. Our commo officer was bad luck walking. One day we had got, it was like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and all of the phones were working, all of them. And suddenly they started dropping out. He had just came back into the compound. He'd been someplace else and just drove in, and we swore it was him. As soon as he come in, the whole world started falling apart.
Let's see, honey, that was you.
Walked in on the Battalion XO one time, stringing phone wires to him. You know, I'm green as grass, tired, been working all day. His phone's not working, and I just walk into his hooch. He wasn't happy with me just not knocking. He sent me back out and said, "You come in properly, soldier." He didn't have much of a sense of, of course, he's a major. Majors didn't have much sense of humor. Because back then, majors are staff officers. They weren't command officers. Well, if you're an Army lifer, the last thing you want to be is in a position that is not command. So he was bucking to go from a gold leaf to a silver leaf, which made him a lieutenant colonel, and that's a command position. And here's this Spec 4 walking in, you know, all grubby, dirty,
But
smelly.
now, at your age, if you were in charge, would you be that That way too? Wait a minute.
Probably.
Disrespectful, come back.
He was a lifer. I was tired, been
But
working all day.
older. He was older.
Oh,
so
sure, sure.
That has something to do with it.
Don't even remember his name.
Mitch.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads me to another question. What did you think of officers and the fellow soldiers there?
The only officers I saw were like our commo officer and
Nice one.
our,
Fort Jackson.
but over there, our battalion commander he was a military man. I remember Sergeant Williams had left, and I was the radio teletype team chief. Now, I was still a Spec 4, specialist 4th grade. The position I was sitting in was a sergeant's position. That's an NCO. A specialist is not an NCO, non-commissioned officer. You're a specialist, not a non-commissioned officer. But so I was a specialist sitting in a non-commissioned officer slot. And the battalion commander and the sergeant major saw me working outside. I was pulling maintenance on our generators. And they started walking towards me. Well, the first thing I did, wipe all the oil and grease off my hands, saluting, "Morning, sir." And he said, "Good morning, Corporal. How's it going?" Now, I wasn't a corporal. I was a Spec 4. But he recognized that I couldn't be a Spec 4 in an NCO slot. He had to call me corporal. That's a non-commissioned officer. So that's, you know, one of those little military stories. He was a career military officer, and he recognized a position. You know, this can't be. I can't call him specialist because he's sitting in an NCO slot. And he called me corporal.
That would have been nicer pay, right?
No, it'd been the same pay, but
Oh.
it's the fact that he recognized
Yeah, yeah.
that I was out of position, and he had to call me corporal.
Okay, do you recall the day your service ended?
The day,
It's bigger than a birthday.
you know, okay, you get your orders to leave, and I still got copies of
It was early. It was probably
Yeah,
early.
it was okay, I got drafted on the 1st of May of '67, so April 30th of '69 should have been my last day. Well, I got out on the 17th or 18th. I got out even earlier than what my orders
But it
were.
was
My
after
orders
the-
said that I was supposed to go from LZ Nancy, go to hitch a ride to an airport in a place called Dong Ha. I was to fly to Pleiku and then fly to Cam Ranh Bay. Well, the first thing you know, you're not in the real world, is we got into Cam Ranh Bay. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning, and we're riding in the back of a 2.5-ton truck, no cover over, so we're sitting on benches. And you're on asphalt paved roads, and there's a Jeep dragging a mosquito killer, you know, mister. And you wonder what world you just walked into. They're killing mosquitoes? I thought we were fighting a war. But, you know, so, you know, there's nothing worse in the Army than what's called a repo depot, a replacement depot. Because those people are in no man's land. They don't belong here and they don't belong there, so they're going from someplace to someplace, and they're in a repo depot. It's a lousy place to be. But, and I know my orders have got me there for like 36 hours. Almost 2 days. And so you got formations, you got to stand, make sure everybody's counted for. And in one formation, this lifer sergeant calls out my name and says to get ready to go on a plane, and my orders say my plane is tomorrow. And I'm not arguing.
I'm going.
I grabbed everything. It's a Boeing 707 chartered by the Army. And everybody gets on the plane. You can hear the clock ticking here. If that clock was in that plane, you would hear it ticking. No one was saying a word. Plane revved up its engines, pointed its nose in the air, sucked the tires up, and everybody yelled and screamed. At that point in time, they couldn't call you back. That's the day.
Well, and the letters for how long before you got home, you talk about being short. You're just short.
Yeah.
You can see over toilet paper, or there were several different sayings, but that was in our letters back and forth. You talk about being short. I mean, it just keeps talking. But
Short means you have fewer and fewer days
right.
left.
And I remember my dad even talking about, because your great grandpa talked about being in the service and being short. I mean, that's they probably still use that.
Oh, yeah.
That you're short. So that was
You
a
get
good-
into your
that's a
last
good phrase.
year,
That's a good
and you're
phrase.
counting days.
Yeah.
Get into the last month. Yeah. I'm so short I can't see over the top of a sheet of toilet paper.
That's what it was. I knew there was something with toilet paper and being short. Yeah.
So what did you do in the days and weeks after you got back?
Just one of them.
Middle of April.
I went looking for a job is what you did.
Middle of April. Wife I haven't seen in 9 months. Son I had never seen. And I had $500 to our name and no job.
But I don't remember that being an
No,
issue at all.
I look back at that and think, you should have been scared witless.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But, you know,
that.
I got lucky. I mean,
But you were persistent.
but I would not change anything. Because when you change the past, you change its future. So I wouldn't change anything. Because if I hadn't been drafted, none of this would exist. Because where I was working was essentially not a nothing job, but it wouldn't have been one you would have wanted to retire from. So by being drafted, it shook my whole life up. So when I come back, I was in a different position. And I got lucky. Ford was hiring, the refinery was hiring, the chemical plant was hiring, and these were all good paying jobs.
Seems a good time to
So,
stay here.
and it was, you know, you go to those places and you fill out an application. The first question they ask you, have you got your military service done?
They don't want to train you and then
Yeah.
lose you.
And then that's specifically the refinery, because the refinery had 2 instances where they hired a guy. He got his 6 months in, which means he was no longer a probationary employee, and then he got drafted. And so 2 years in the Army, and the guy come back, and he guaranteed a job. Well, I'm sitting there with $500, you know, I'm wondering, well, I don't think I was even bright enough to say, you know, how much, we were probably broke when we got our first check.
But I don't remember.
No.
I remember what was it? I thought we had 11 or 12 cents in Oklahoma,
Oh,
when we were
17 or
there.
19.
No, you were hiding like 8 cents from me.
Oh.
I didn't realize you had 8 cents. I thought we had 11 cents to our name. But you also had KP. So he brought home pies. I still have a pie pan from that.
That was in Fort Sill,
And,
Oklahoma.
yeah.
There were times
Lawton.
when,
Lawton, Oklahoma.
uh,
No, we wouldn't have made it without that, I don't
Yeah.
think. And
we're
that-
broke still. Well, we went to the PX one day and, used to have a 64 Ford. Drove it out
Oh.
and drove it back. We were at the PX
I
and
think
we
we
were
were
just
Christmas
leaving.
decorations or something.
We were just leaving and a guy backing out as I drove
Yeah.
by and he hit us.
Yeah.
And,
That was
you know,
his fault.
you call the MPs and all of this, and I'm not gonna spend any money getting fixed.
No.
You turn in a report to the insurance, and then some days, weeks later, we get a check for $100.
No, $99.99. Your mom put another penny with it to make it $100.
The estimate for the repair was $99.99.
What do you remember that going for?
I have no idea.
It went to pay for a phone bill back here that we had talked on Mom's phone, and it was like that much, and it went to pay for that. I didn't go for groceries or anything else. That went for a bill. But Grandma your great grandma put a penny with it and sent us the check for $100 instead of being $99.99.
But, yeah.
I don't remember ever, but I think the economy was so much different that it was, everything was like that. And with $500, our rent at the apartment was only like $90. So it wasn't, it wasn't horrible that,
But I got
But
a
I
sneak
don't remember
in
that at all.
when we got the first
and your
check
mom
from
and
the
dad would have
retirement.
bailed us out, so it would not have been. I mean, she did me. When I brought your dad home from the hospital, I had nothing because it was the transition time from when Papa was here and then went to Vietnam. I was going to get the check, but there was some lag, and so Grandma gave me some ham. She like had ham. Remember her always done ham? She gave me some ham, and I don't remember what all else. But I would have been without groceries if she hadn't given me that. But again, I don't remember it being. It wasn't like I was afraid of going hungry. Grandma just lived down the road. Your mom and dad lived close.
Things were
None of them-
thin, but you never noticed it.
Yeah, and nobody would have let us go hungry or anything. It just wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't happen.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service, and did you continue any of those relationships?
No, I'd have to go back through our letters. I remember one guy's name, is only because Bill Hommelhans.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, two, but Bill Hommelhans, you gotta remember that name.
Fun
Hommelhans,
name.
he's from Pennsylvania.
Fun name.
And then a guy from Puerto Rico, Jose Serrano Hernandez. Remember him because in basic training, you know, you got these floors that you gotta keep shining. You know, you hear all the stories about, you know, they come along with a white glove and white things down. Well, you always take the smallest guy in the platoon and you got a buffer. You sit him on the buffer and you shine the floor. That's how I remember him.
I wish that we would have had the technology then for any number of reasons. But Uncle Eric, who was in Afghan? Kuwait. He is still friends with the guy because of Facebook, cell phones, everything else. His friendships will probably go on as long as social media does. And he lost, not that they were great friends, but nonetheless, he still lost contact with people. And you hear that all the time of men that were in the service, whether it's World War II or Vietnam, that do, for whatever reason, run into each other. But it's few and far between. And nowadays, it's commonplace to still keep track of people. I just wish we would have had that.
But teletype rig, if I would have known then what I know now. I had a teletype rig
Yeah.
with a radio that would put out 100 watts off the tip of the antenna. If I would have known what I should have known, I could have figured out a way of calling home.
There was one Christmas, the Christmas that you were born, so you were born in August, so that Christmas, I stayed with Grandma and Grandpa Roller, because he thought he might get to call home. He didn't, but I got to do that, and really, it was a very fun Christmas. Even though we didn't get to talk to him, Aunt Mary and Aunt Carol and Grandma and Grandpa, we all
The
had
brigade
time.
headquarters had a MARS station, military affiliated radio system, where there were ham operators back here in the States. Then there were military radio operators that at night, when they had nothing else to do, they would try and hook up with a ham operator back in the States who would place a phone call, and then you would talk on the radio to the phone. And I stood in line one night for a couple hours, but you know.
But I almost think
never
that
happened.
it would have been worse to hear and talk, and then,
Could have been, it would have been just one time.
and it would have been.
But if I would have known, with that radio, if I could have got on the right frequencies, I could have probably called home.
Hindsight's always 20/20.
Did
You know, a CB radio is 4 watts. I had 100.
And CDs could skip all over the place.
So did you join a veterans organization afterwards?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I know the story better than you do. Even if your music's not.
they
Why?
tried to put together a VFW for Bath Township.
Sorry, I don't think.
You and your dad bought me a life membership to the VFW. And
Which one? The one on 4th Street.
yeah, there's a VFW in town, 1275.
Not a drinker, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what
Those
organizations-
Not a great social person. And,
I know that's surprising.
1275 was a World War II VFW.
Which is my grandpa.
And the guys coming back from Vietnam simply didn't They didn't fit in with them, and the blacks especially. And a bunch of black guys put together a VFW, and it's since, you know,
Yeah, I don't think so. I go
it's not,
past there.
it's not existent anymore because,
Oh, it was cool.
you know, it's just, you know, it takes a lot of effort to keep one of those places going.
But that's the one that we got in the membership to, was the black one, because he
But
was
the-
not like the one that your great-grandpa hung out in.
VFW is so much politics. You can cut it with a knife.
Do you still?
Yeah, I get the VFW magazine, but
And he has-
their officers
gold.
are elected every
Not gold,
year,
it's gold.
which means, and you can't hold the same office 2 years. So if you're, I don't even know what they call them anymore, but whatever rank you're in, other than maybe chaplain and a service officer, but the leadership changes every year,
There's that one
and
guy that
it's
helps.
all politics.
There's that one guy though that helps, like with when Dad died and stuff. I think his position is like forever.
That's a
But
service
yeah, I don't know
officer.
what he's called.
Now, they're service officers, and that's what they do, they provide a service.
He's a help.
But the leadership is just so much politics, and if they would spend all of that energy helping the veterans, they'd be so much better.
Yeah.
But they spend so much time politicking, and I just couldn't stand
A
it.
lot of time drinking.
And I was brought up, my formative years were the 50s, early 50s, on into the 60s, and there were some television shows back then. Communism was the big red threat. And there was a story, I led 3 lives. It was a person who was a spy for the FBI, and he was supposedly a member of the communists, some spy ring here. Communists call themselves comrades. In the VFW, they call each other comrades. Now, there's a different connotation there,
Not in your mind.
but I couldn't get past that. Because when I'm 6, 7, 8 years old, there's these communists, and they call themselves comrades. And it's like a baby bird imprinting on its mother. You know, I hear communists calling themselves comrades, and then you can't get past people calling themselves comrades. Those are communists. Weird stuff.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Oh, nothing, yeah.
You don't let civilians run wars, and I'm not sure you let the military run wars. Civilians don't understand wars are about killing the other guy. And civilians, they don't like to kill other people. Well, that's what you do in war. During the first Gulf War, when we kicked Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait, if you remember this highway of death, when, I mean, we had trapped, you know, they'd done this great big left-hand sweep, and they had essentially cornered the Iraqi army, and they were fleeing out of Kuwait on this one highway. And it was a turkey shoot. They sent in everything that we had, and imagine a highway full of military, and you bomb the front and you bomb the back, and they can't move, and then you destroy everything in the middle. And they literally did that, and then the politicians said, this doesn't look good for us. I mean, there was bodies every place. So they called it off before it was over. And so here we've done it again and again and again. The problem with militaries running the war is you ask them to do the impossible, to win, but don't kill a lot of people.
No, that's our
And
people for that.
that's what we ask for.
Yeah. not other
And
countries.
you expect them to win, But when you do that, that's expensive. You have to have an F-35 jet plane that costs $150 million a piece. And it doesn't quite work. But that's what, when you fight, you're supposed to fight to win. To fight to win, you have to spend a ton of money, and we don't want to spend a ton of money. So, civilians can't run wars, and the military guys just...
And it's run by men.
Yeah.
Run it by women, you're going to have wars.
It's
You're not going to kill my son, you're not going to kill my husband, you're not going to do it that way. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're not going to do it that way.
Made the same mistake in Iraq that we did in South Vietnam, is you don't understand the way those people think. And there are theocracies. The Muslim religion doesn't have a hierarchy, so to speak, where you have, a bottom and a top. The popes have Catholics and bishops and all of this stuff. If you're a charismatic religious person, you can be a leader. Well, they have leaders here and leaders there, and they're stuck in about the 14th century. That's where they are in their religion. They haven't gone through a reformation. And so we're fighting the same thing there that we, imagine Ho Chi Minh saying, see, we won. 300 years, we won. Well, it's the same thing.
On the other part too, it never fails, at least with the Army. You go in there, and if you have a specialty that you had in civilian life, they're going to muck you up and put you someplace else. They never put you where you belong. So, I mean, it's just from the get-go, they got it wrong.
This is more just general. Which party did you identify with during the war, before, during, and after? Or did the war change your political thinking at all, or anything like that?
I don't think the war has had anything to do with it. No, not really.
We both felt the same way.
How did you feel about the anti-war demonstrations back in the U.S.?
That's what lost, if you talk about losing the war, that's what did it, because, once the civilian population is against anything, at least in a democracy, then, you have no backing.
It was so different than it is now. I mean, I was afraid in the airport. I don't know if you were, but I was afraid in the airport when I picked Papa up and I took Johnny with me, and your dad with me. Because now it's everybody, they clap for people when they get off the airplane. They, shower them with affection. And I was literally worried because Papa had his uniform on, and it's like you were despised, absolutely despised. And it was, let's just get out of this airport and in the car as quick as we can. Get away from here and get home. And you weren't home, I don't know, maybe you remember how long, maybe, I don't even know if it was a month, and our apartment had just one door. I mean, it was a strip apartment, kind of like, and there was one way out, the front door. And it was only 2 rooms. One was divided into the front room and a kitchen, and the other was a bedroom and a bathroom. And one night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, crashing sound. Our window was being broken in the front window was being broken into. And that was almost like my fears were being realized, that somebody knew that Papa was in the service and had just gotten home and had no idea what they were going to do. And again, we had no way out. That's where they were, whoever this was, and we couldn't get out. And your dad was just a baby. And long story short, it was a guy that lived 2 apartments down, was drunk, and thought he was breaking into his own home. But that was my fear. I mean, it was that protesters were outside. Now, they weren't, but But it wasn't like a month after you left?
I remember the time, I don't remember how
How
long.
long, yeah.
Because
But
he was drunk.
it's just I'm still not over that part where that's what we had to face, and now everybody is gung ho, God bless America, and God bless your soldiers, and thanks for your service.
I never got these bumper stickers, you know, about support our troops. You know, because if I don't have one, does that mean I don't?
Exactly. People think if you don't say that, or if you don't constantly throw out, I'm supporting everybody, then obviously you're not supporting them. But
So, is there anything that you would like to add that we have not covered?
God bless America.
No, the thing is, you know, like I said, I had it lucky. I was, you know.
Oh,
Here.
tell them about the fan. Tell them about your mom and dad and the fan.
Oh,
Best story ever. Totally
I
tell
wouldn't-
them about grandma, your great grandma, grandpa. Hilarious.
when we were shipping over, to stretch the story out, I had a bunch of socks and whatever, and I put them in baggies and wrapped them all up.
Keep them dry.
And I don't know why, but I bought a bunch of shower nozzles, 3 or 4 of them. Don't know why. I just heard about, you know, taking showers over there, and anyway, I had 2 or 3 of those, and as luck would have it, used those. You know, you'd have a building with a 50-gallon drum on top with a drip heater in it, and the water would just sprinkle out. Well, it'd sprinkle out of a pipe. No, you screw a shower nozzle onto that. So I had 2 or 3, and I remember we were first up there probably 3-4 weeks. A guy come over from another unit and said he'd heard that I had some shower nozzles and would like to buy one. I said, well, buy one. Here, I got 2 or 3 here, have this one. Well, we got to LZ Nancy, and, you know, okay, I was never, first there, you know, filling sandbags, it was probably 120 degrees, but we were next to the ocean. I was probably never more than 4 or 5 miles from the South
And
China
this mow the
Sea.
yard in 103-degree weather. The family is all heat.
But I mentioned to Mom that it'd be nice to have a fan. So she tells Dad,
She's a mother. She's
you know,
going to provide
go-
what you ask for.
go buy a fan and ship it.
Yeah. Give it to
Well,
Clarence. I don't think she said ship it. Give it to
Well, that's
Clarence.
what
Send
Dad
it.
did. He
Send
bought
it.
a fan and he shipped it.
By boat to Vietnam. Oh, she was furious. Furious doesn't even count what she was. It was cheaper, which is where some other people get there. Anyhow, so she went out, bought another one, and airmailed it to him. So we got the one. I don't remember how long it was after you got the first one.
Several weeks later, we got
Yeah.
the other fan.
Yeah. But I mean, isn't that totally mad? Well, it's cost this much to do it this way, and this much to we'll just send it that way.
See, but then I had a fan and a teletype rig.
Yeah.
You need to look at those pictures. I was real proud of that teletype rig because I had that baby bunkered in, and I had 2 generators. So I always had power until they both broke. But it was air conditioned because the radio needed to be kept cool. And had one of the fans was, you know, I had like a little porch off of it, covered in. I took
Obviously, he had plenty of time
ammo
in the
crates
day.
that I broke down and made windows and screen doors and all of this stuff, and had one fan in there. And then the other thing about Vietnam is you see all the guys, you know, you figure war, they're in foxholes and all of this. Vietnam was expensive because we take our comfort with us.
If we have
Now, I don't know about line companies, so those are guys that are doing the real fighting. But battalion headquarters, I only slept in a tent when there wasn't anything else available. So we got there in tents, and tents are hot. I mean, you gotta pull the flaps up. It'd be 120 or so inside the tent. But it took a week or 2, and some military construction people come in, they scrape an area flat. They put little pieces of plywood on the ground, put 4x4 posts on it, leveled it all off, build a frame around it, put a floor on, so it's 16 by 32, plywood floor, come up 4 feet, you know, they build the walls, you know, 2 by 4s, like 2 or 4 foot on center, but they put plywood all the way around it, put the trusses on, put a metal roof on, and then put screen all the way around it. That's not too tough. And everybody on that LZ lived in what we called a hooch. You know, wasn't tent, wasn't dirty, you were up off the ground.
Did
We
you have
had,
to check your shoes or anything? There wasn't anything that bugs or anything that
Nope.
got in.
we had a 16 by 32 hooch, and it was just for, I was part of the commo platoon, but I was in radio teletype, so I wasn't doing their work. They lived in another hooch, so that'd been 8 or 10 guys in here. In our 16 by 32 hooch, there was me, and for a while, another guy, the other guy, Arthur Marcus was his name, was the other teletype operator. And then there were 2 guys that run an FM retransmitter. They had their own radios, you know, the way you got phone signal from LZ Nancy to the brigade headquarters was line of sight radio. So they had FM transmitters that all the phones went through. So there was 2 of them and 2 of us, and finally we got a third guy. It was 5 of us in a 16 by 32 hooch. I had my own area. I scrounged material, and I got pictures of that. I had an area that was like 8 by 8 or 8 by 10, and I had walled that all in like it was a separate room with a door, and my cot was in there with the mosquito netting on it.
He made lots of friends.
And I had a phone in right next to my bed that was spliced into the wires that the phone was at in my teletype rig, which went to the, I suppose the commo platoon was still running the switchboard. But if I would have had the right clearance, if my battalion commander had come down to my bunk, he had the pull. He could have picked up my radio and said, call the Pentagon. Now it would have taken a lot of work, but he could have done that from that phone with the right clearance. So yeah, I didn't have it too tough.
We also were able to send things. I don't remember it being expensive to send things back, but I think your mom did mine too. I almost swear to it. But I found a recipe for cocktail cake and sent a cake to him all the time. And then he sent back, you know, our chicken and biscuits that we eat every holiday. I don't know how you found those, but you found those and told us about them. And we started getting chicken and biscuit. But yeah, remember the fruit cocktail cake? There were certain things that you could send that didn't need refrigeration. And I remember sending those to you.
You know, like I told you, I had that truck that offloaded the teletype rig from, so the truck just sat there. Well, let's see. S2 was the intelligence part. S3 was like the administration, clerks and stuff like that. They didn't have a truck, but they kind of needed to every, you know, 2 or 3 times a week drive back to the brigade headquarters. Well, they didn't have a truck, and I had a truck. I didn't use a truck, and they needed a truck. And they asked if they could borrow my truck, and I said, well, it's not my truck, but yeah, you know. And they said, well, you know, we'll take care of you. I don't care, it's not my truck. When I left, was cycling out, I didn't realize, not being a lifer, I was supposed to keep a logbook every mile that truck traveled. Well, I didn't do that, and the S3 people didn't do that, and the maintenance sergeant went ballistic when I went to, I had to turn in all of my stuff. Well, one of the stuff was a truck. In any case, you know, the S3 used the truck. Well, once a week or twice a week, there would be a 24-pack of beer and pop. Someplace, well, they just left it in the truck. Forgot to take it out. Sure, they rented the truck, and we had, you know, beer for the guys that drunk, and I had pop, and every once in a while there'd be a carton of C rations left in there.
Or pound cake? Did you do pound cake?
Well, it was
like
you know,
pound cake.
but so, you know, No, like I said, I didn't have it too tough over there.
Any more questions?
So, vote for you, I do.
Oh, okay. I thought I got two.
Yeah, no, I'm done with Papa for now.
Done with you.
And like I said, I don't have as many specific questions, so if you just want to talk.
Oh.
So I guess to start, how did you meet Papa? I already know, but.
Neighbor. Just down the road.
Well,
Literally.
Well,
the first-
before,
Oh, no, that was right here on Gerald. His cousin lived in the same trailer court that Gigi lived in. And so he saw me. I knew his cousin first, and I was, what, like 8. So he would have been like 12. So, yeah.
so how did you start
Um,
dating?
actually, you liked Dot first. Dot O'Neill.
yeah,
That's the first time I really remember seeing you. With my girlfriend, kind of like you. So it was summer, and we were all out on the road. It was just a horseshoe kind of road, and I just thought he had pretty eyes.
you know,
But she
you know,
liked him, so.
You know, we all lived, you know,
And I was, I don't know, 3. You know?
lived in the same neighborhood.
Yeah,
and-
literally just down the road. And he and another friend would always, in the summer, walk around the road, so saw each other. I mean, practically neighbors.
Okay.
No big dance or anything else. just
I thought you
like-
said something about a water fountain. Maybe I'm making that up. I don't
I
know.
think so. I don't remember any water
I
fountain
don't know that.
in our relationship. The mall had one, but that's all.
Okay, so how old were you when Papa was drafted?
17. 17. He was he got drafted right before right before prom and graduation. Literally, left in April, and prom and graduation were in May. So it's both.
And how did you feel about him being drafted?
Oh, it's horrible. It's devastating. We've gone together for 4 years. We were going to get married, and that totally changed all the plans. So yeah, devastating.
So how did you change your plans after he was drafted?
Waited until he got out of AIT, and then
Oh,
got married when he was on leave for those 2 weeks.
What did you have, maybe a week to put the wedding together?
No, we had a little bit longer than that because we had invitations and everything, but then.
Yeah,
had
but see, I got
not-
recycled that one
Right,
week.
so then we didn't get to use the invitations because it had the wrong date on it. And then both grandmas called, or great grandmas, called everybody about the wedding, when it was and where it was and everything. So it was just, yeah.
You know, I
We put together.
probably knew I was coming home on leave, maybe
week?
a week before.
Yeah, the wedding, yeah. That was very
I don't
bad.
remember even, when did we go get the marriage license?
Like the Friday before, we got married on Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember.
Sunday?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it was Sunday.
So did I get home in time on Friday
You
to
must
get it?
have, must have.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I don't remember it being, I don't remember that we got somebody special to, you know, do it. But we had to have blood work too.
Yeah, I don't,
So maybe you got, if it was 2 weeks, it was the week before and then we had, I think that might have been it, a week before and then the week after was when you were here. Because I had time to get the apartment and we had our blood work because I had, in those times, you had to have blood drawn.
blood test.
Yeah, blood test to get married. And, yeah, I know. And so we went to a football game after we were married because Judy was cheerleading. And Grandma and I went to the restroom and I said, look at this. And I pulled up my shirt or whatever. And I mean, it was just black and blue from where they had taken the blood. And Grandma goes, is he beating you again? You know, here we are with all the people that I know in the restroom. So it was, everybody, she was funny, so it was quite funny. But yeah, so it had to be, you got home probably a week before.
Wow.
Because we also saw Reverend Morte for the counseling, so that was way too much to do in like a day or two. So it was the week before we got married and then the week after we got married.
I don't have those orders
No.
of when I got out of AIT.
It might be one of the letters, it might have just got just the letter. But yeah, and then Aunt Mary, the day we were getting married, he called, and I'm like, we're not supposed to talk. And I know, we're not supposed to see each other. He didn't say anything about not talking. And so we talked, and we get to the church, or I get to the church, and my best friend who was in the wedding, we can't find her. We finally found her. She was out in the car crying because we were getting married that day, and our other friend, there was 3 of us, was getting married the next month, so she was all upset about, you know, life changing, and everybody's going to not see each other. And I just called her 3 days ago for her birthday. But anyhow, and then Aunt Mary comes in and she goes, "What's wrong with Clarence?" "What do you mean, what's wrong with Clarence? We're getting married today. Why? What's wrong?" "Well, he won't talk to anybody." And so then after, while we're at the reception at Silla's church, I said, "So what was wrong with you this morning?" And he said, "Nothing." And I said, "Well, Mary said you wouldn't talk to anybody." And he goes, "I didn't have anything to say." So yeah, so that was kind of scary. And what was it? Well, that other stuff about the wedding dress and whatever. But anyway.
So you had to raise Dad while Papa was off in the war.
And the teenagers were horrible. No. Yes, we did.
And did you realize you were going to have to going to be doing that on your own, or did you?
See, you don't. Yeah, those being young and stupid, you don't even. I mean, sure, let's get me pregnant. You go to Vietnam, because like everybody's getting killed over there. What a really good idea. No, we had gone together for 4 years. I wanted a family, he, whatever. And so, I mean, I remember crying the first month when I did get pregnant after we got married.
I'll tell them the counting story.
No, your father. I think I've told her before, but that doesn't have anything to do with it. He just was like 4 or 5, and the sofa. Oh, don't you dare! Bad puppy. Amanda? Keep him out there.
Huh?
Keep him out there.
Yeah, I keep trying, but I'm also trying to cook lunch.
Okay, just put him outside.
I did, and then he barks.
Then, yeah, okay. Anyhow, we were sitting around the kitchen table and the soap opera was on, and somebody must have gotten pregnant out of wedlock or something. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden I see him, and he's sitting there, and I can tell he's thinking, and he goes, "When's your anniversary?" I go, "Don't worry, we were married 11 months before you were born," but he had done the math. So yeah, so no, we had won the family, so for us it was just, that's what we wanted to do. So, no, had no concept of what it would be, and really it was not like it was a long time. He was 8 months old when Papa got home, so it wasn't horrible. I remember when I was in labor, I must have been saying Papa's name or something, because the nurse, who was very not nice, said, "He can't help you now." But this, you know, I mean, she was but I had the same nurse when Uncle Wes was born, and she had been saved at Beth Temple. Aunt Ann and Uncle Jay knew her, and she was extremely nice that time. And it wasn't that she knew me; she just was in a much better place when I had Uncle Wes. But yeah, and everybody was very supportive. I mean, Grandma, Aunt Judy, Aunt Carol, Aunt Mary took pictures of him all the time that we sent to Papa. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best of things, but it was not. I don't remember it being intolerable or anything else. I mean, he was just such a good baby for the most part. Was a really good baby. Except one time I got sick, and then it was like, somebody wants this one because I can't do that. But yeah, I don't remember it being a hardship.
Okay, and Pat was saying like his time in Vietnam was pretty, he had it easy, but knowing that, were you still worried, or were you comforted by that?
Yeah, no, I did not know, because like I said, he sent a letter saying that he had slept through the first attack. It was like,
Well, you got that on tape. I think we still got the tape. On guard duty, you know, you have perimeter guards, and then when we were at Charlie 3, we would have an interior roving guard, just walking around at night. Well, our vehicles are tracked vehicles. You see them, you know, carry lots of soldiers, you know, a platoon of soldiers. Anyway, they would bulldoze a great big slot in the ground, and you'd set your vehicles down in there. You know, beats that, or you bunker them all in. Well, that dirt was up on a pile. Well, when I was on guard duty one night, I would just sit up on that pile. That way, you know, I could watch everything. Wouldn't have to walk around. Yeah. So I'm up there, and I'm talking on the tape machine to her, and I didn't realize at the time, boom, we had a VC. He wasn't too bright. Little handheld 60mm mortar. Well, that night he dropped one round, and it went off, and it's on the background of this one tape. I didn't even realize it until after the fact.
you're gonna die. But, yeah, I had, your dad, and I played ostrich. I really did not watch the news, did not read the paper, couldn't afford to get the paper. But yeah, worried, but not, and we had, like I said, we had the tapes, and I guess probably because of what he was doing, it was not that scary. I mean, it was, but it wasn't, it was just biding our time.
Did I send you pictures home, or did I just
Yeah.
bring them home?
Oh.
That's the one thing,
You the picture.
that's the one thing I regret, was that
But
I've
still, you've got a lot.
20 or, no, I should have taken thousands of pictures.
Okay,
Yeah.
nobody did, but he couldn't
Yeah.
afford it.
But, somebody had a Polaroid over
Luckily,
there.
Aunt Mary had an Instamatic and took pictures of you. I mean, we shipped those over all the time.
You know, I've got, a few pictures of things, but that's why I really,
Even had like our 1968 selfies. Aunt Mary took, I forget who was Aunt Mary taking them of the Instamatic. But, yeah, it was, I can't say that I worried a lot. I worried, but not, it wasn't horrible or anything. So I had it, compared to others, I had it very good too.
So you were here like during anti-war movements and stuff. How did you feel about that knowing your husband was in Vietnam?
Again, upsetting, understanding. I mean, I never had a horrible hatred for anybody that did, but yeah, but again, we're out here. If we would have been in town, maybe we would have seen more, but we're in the country. So,
see, this is
Lima, I don't
this is
remember what
Lima.
happened. Yeah.
I doubt there was very little, if any of that in this town.
No, at that time, we had more racial tension
Yeah.
here in Lima than we had anti-war protests. The anti-war protests were on the news, Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. But here we had, I was more concerned about that. Went to a friend's house one time, and lived on Lakewood, and probably shouldn't have gone. So yeah, there was much more racial tension than there was Vietnam.
Allen, this neck of the woods is still very conservative. Allen County, you don't remember Barry Goldwater? I think he...
Remember?
Yeah.
Should have
Remember
read
of
about
him.
No,
Ran for
read
president in
about him.
1964. I think maybe one state voted for him. 5 counties in Ohio went Republican, voted for him. Allen County is one of them.
Yeah, they still are.
That tells you how conservative this
Still are.
place is.
Yeah. So I don't remember ever any protests here.
Those were big city things, and the press probably blew them up bigger than what they really were.
Right.
So before Pepper got drafted, how did you feel about the war and why we were going to war? And then after, what was your impression?
Before, only what we would hear about it in government classes so early. He probably told us more than anybody else did. So really not, I was in high school, I was your age. So not, there were other things, mascot, GAA, conventions, stuff that you're doing now, or similar things that you're doing now, choir, the end of the year concerts. So really, probably not as politically aware, nothing compared to what I am now, and nothing compared to what, bless your little heart, that you are. So yeah, very and Grandma, Gigi, did not watch the news, did not watch anything, was working. Your household, they did. Mine, they didn't. So I was probably very, very under.
Disconnected.
Yeah, very, very much. Yeah. And after, not a whole lot more. Again, involved with raising children and putting food on the table and you getting a job and just grateful that you were home and catching up for, all those things. So I don't think always voted, but not politically aware, more so in the last 10 years than I ever was, ever. And luckily have friends that are, maybe more than 10, probably 25, 30 years. Because when I had the shop, I had to not declare much because I had both sides of the fence that were clients. So yeah, but the last 10 years, definitely more than I was before.
Alright, were there any stories or anything interesting that happened related to, you know, Dad or Papa or you, I don't know, whatever you wanna talk about?
Couldn't be
Yeah,
involved with, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The airport thing is probably the one that stands out mine, and your dad not really noticing Papa, but loving his hat. But he was, again, 8 months old, and came home, and this one, of course, Mr. Overachiever, wasn't taking a bottle, you know, was not really a baby. So didn't, you know, he didn't get to experience the baby until Uncle Wes came along. So yeah, nothing.
We were building the mess hall in Charlie 3, leveling off the ground
Oh,
and
yeah.
getting ready to put
And I have
the
that.
mess hall tent up when I got
The telegram, and then I've got it in your folder. I've got a folder for you. I can find that too, where you got the message that you
down
were
there
born.
sweating and playing in the dirt, putting up a tent when we got.
Oh, sure, I'm having a baby in labor and you're just in a den sweating, whatever. Always the way it is. But yeah, nothing. And my one of my memories is that I really miss Papa. There was a night that Elvis was on TV, and he was looking good. It was the best Elvis. It wasn't that Elvis. It was I think a Las Vegas Elvis. He was in the black suit or something. It was singing. It was like, man, I really missed you that night. So yeah, and like I had a lot of support. And Aunt Mary took pictures. Aunt Carol was there. Aunt Judy was down all the time. Lived very close to Gigi, so I had a lot of support. Didn't drive the car all winter. I was afraid it would start, and I'd have a baby with me. So that was hard and tricky. But yeah, and he was a good baby for the most part. So we were lucky, very, very lucky. First of all, she came back. Second of all, no.
Do you have any questions, Chris? No? Alright, do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't think I'd change anything.
I don't think you can. It affects now.
Yeah,
You can't.
but you know.
Oh, about the job. When we went to Oklahoma, right after we got married, and we were there for, went out in November and came back in March.
Probably.
We left in April. I couldn't get a job out there either. I wanted to get a job, and they wouldn't hire because of the same thing. They would train you, and then you would leave because getting, you know, your spouse going to Vietnam.
That,
So
and there
I
were
couldn't
so
get a
many
job.
military wives there that
Right.
the market was flooded.
Right. So I did not have a job.
One thing I gotta do with the computer, Google Earth, is, I just
Oh,
thought of it last night
And
too.
it's totally different there now. I have a name of somebody that lives there now, that was in Vietnam, came back, and then had friends that traveled, went there, and now he lives there. He's lived there for 10 years and teaches English. And the people hold no grudge. Absolutely have no grudge against what happened or anything else, which to me is just amazing. You think that they would still have some kind of issues. But he loves it there, and his sister, who is the friend of mine, she said she would love to move there. She said it's
Well,
a
Fort
wonderful
Sill,
place.
well, no, Fort Sill was called the Country Club. Because, I don't know, I didn't have time, they said, hell of a golf course, hell of a park system and all of that. Fort Sill was an artillery post. That's where, if your military occupation especially was artillery, that's where you went to train, because they had a huge post where they could fire, you know, miles and miles, and but it was called the Country Club.
But you got me a blue telephone, a blue Princess phone, and a red kitchen. And yeah, we had each other. That's all we wanted. We had 40 years of people telling us we couldn't be together, and so we finally got married. It was like, okay, we don't need anybody. I mean, we visited with the neighbors, and that was
Went to the movie a couple times.
a couple times, yeah, because they served dill pickle, because all the girls were always pregnant, so they had dill pickles at the movie theater, and rocking chairs before we had them here, and had fish sandwiches at the one, and it was real easy to know your way around A, B, and C were the streets, and we lived real close, and they didn't know what to do when it snowed. They had one hill.
Little tiny incline,
real little.
probably over 150 or 200 yards to the hill went up 3 or 4 feet,
And we had a squirrely ford
and
and could make it up the hill.
you got people
Nobody
there from
else
all
could.
over the United States, and a lot of them from the south. You know, you get a little skip of snow on the ground, and they're just
It
lost.
closed everything. It started snowing, and I remember making a snowball. You obviously not going out because it was cold. I went out and made a snowball and was throwing at you. And we just assumed that the snowplows would be out, you know, where they put salt on the road.
No snowplows.
No snowplows. You just wait for the snow to go away. But it was just one day. I remember that one day, and that was in November. And we heard the band playing when we
got
drove
there.
up.
Yep, when we
And
got
it was like, that was a sign to me. Because, I mean, you know, we always had been in school and football games and stuff, and never heard it after that. Never heard it. And
Pulled in, it was dusk,
and the
and
band
someplace
was
there
playing.
was a band playing.
A high school band playing. And that was just a sign that it was going to be okay. And it was. But yeah, my blue Princess phone. And a TV. One TV.
Black and white.
Black and white, yeah. Little bit thing. Cost like $65.
Whatever it was expensive.
Something like that, yeah. But we did have a TV. And I don't remember if there was, I mean, there wasn't cable. I don't
Oh,
remember
no.
how we watched or what we watched.
There was probably one television station in town.
Got encyclopedias, Door Thielman.
Tom.
Got the, hey.
Wow.
Got those, and a record. I bought records once a month. It was one of those
Where
record
did you get the money?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think, I don't know about before, but she was alone. And is that where you learned to budget all your money? Or is that just what you always did?
I had a checking account. I have a checking account. I had a checking account. I had worked before we got married. Well, from the time I was 15. So yeah, I knew how to. Thank God. I don't know where we'd be. But yeah, knew how to budget, and the chicken wings and the pies that you brought home from KP. Thank God for KP. I'm telling you. I mean, we wouldn't have eaten if we didn't have that. And the base wasn't expensive because you got to get all your supplies and groceries and everything on the base, and that savings helped too. But yeah, I don't remember being poor. I don't remember we never not.
You look back on it and you think,
We had to be,
that
but-
month we had 17 cents before payday.
11
And,
and the holdout.
and you don't,
I can't
you know,
imagine.
it wasn't anything, oh my God, we're broke.
No. Oh, and everybody sent us stuff for Christmas, and Mary sent us chocolate covered cherries, and we had one a day to make them last. Yeah, like that happened now. I'd hide them from your ass, and I'd eat all of them. But yeah, they all sent, I think, mittens and gloves or something, which you didn't need. But yeah, a care package for Christmas. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah. So yeah, all in all for us, it was not a bad. I mean, it was a long 8 months, 9 months, but it wasn't as horrible as some people have gone through. And it wasn't 2 or 3. You know, Uncle Eric was there, I don't know how long, and then he went back. Yeah, because he didn't have anybody, and he said he went back than somebody that had a family. And yeah, he's fine now. She came back again. But yeah, so not bad. And it got us to here, so there you go.
Okay, anything?
No, not a bomb, not a bean.